बढ़ गई है कि उसका हार्ट फेल हो गया है, इस डेमोक्रेसी का हार्ट फेल हो रहा है। तो इस हार्ट फेल की बीमारी के लिए क्या ट्रीटमेंट होगा वो इस एक्ट में नहीं दिखता। इसमें जो एक टाइम टेस्टेड एक्सपीरियंस होता है, सक्सेस होता है उसके ऑपरेटिव पार्ट को, उसको इसमें शामिल करना पड़ेगा। उदय शंकर जी, ये एक्ट बिल्कुल एकदम एकेडमिक जैसा दिखता है, या फिर जो दूसरे एक्ट बनते हैं वैसा दिखता है। इस एक्ट में कहीं भी तकड़ी चोट नहीं की है इस बीमार सिस्टम पर। गंगा को बीमार बनाने वाले सिस्टम को, गंगा को बीमार करके मैला ढोने वाली मालगाड़ी बनाने वाले सिस्टम पर कहीं कोई चोट नहीं है। हमें इस एक्ट में उस सिस्टम पर चोट करके एक अच्छा बेहतर सिस्टम बनाने वाला एक्ट का ड्राफ्ट बनाना चाहिए। धन्यवाद। मैं बधाई देना चाहता हूं तारे तुम्हें कि तुमने एक अच्छी पहल की है, एक अच्छी पहल की है। इसलिए मैं आपके कंसोर्टियम को, उदय शंकर जी और दुबे जी, सबको आपको बधाई देना चाहता हूं। पर बधाई इस डर के साथ कि इस एक्ट में कुछ वो चीजें नहीं है जो चीजें हमें चाहिए, हमारी गंगा को चाहिए, वो चीजों की जरूरत है, उनको लेकर आइए। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सर। I believe, sir, we'll take care. I've noted down the point which you have pointed in your deliberation, and we'll look into this particular matter, and many things possibly we can relook and can incorporate it. But one thing, I'm very happy that you have also agreed on this point that there is need for a comprehensive legislation. Now, may I request Honorable Justice Ashok Kumar Ganguly to give his initial remark.
The speakers who have already spoken on the subject have impressed upon the importance of the river. I would just say that the Ganga is the lifeline of India. If Ganga survives, India will survive. If Ganga dries up, we will not be living. The Ganga has such an importance, not only as a river, as a center of our civilization. What Mr. Rajendra Singh said, almost same thing was said by none other than Pandit Nehru. Before even our independence, I'll just read a few lines from what Panditji said in his Discovery of India, written while he was in prison. I'm just quoting him. The story of the Ganges, from our source to the sea, from the old times to the new, is the story of India's civilization and culture. The rise and fall of the empires, of the great and proud cities, of the adventure of man and the quest of the mind. This is very important. Jo Singh ji ne jo bataya. The quest of the mind which has so occupied India's thinkers, of the richness and fulfillment of life, as well as its denial and renunciation, of ups and downs, of growth and decay, of life and death. So it shows, it has an impact both in our life and in death. And Ganga River Commission was thought of even prior to independence by Indian National Congress. This shows the importance of the river. So merely declaring it as a national river in 2008, the government has not done anything new. And it can be only compared, the river, the Ganga basin, can only be compared with the Nile. The Ganges is truly the international river basin. And do you know the area? 9 lakh kilometers in area. The dominant population for whom the river comprises a quarter of the available water resources of India, and which comprises, the basin comprises 26% of the nation's land and 43% of its irrigated land. These are facts to show the importance of the river. Additionally, Ganga is the basis for successive dynasties in Indian history and a firm religious theme of life-giving significance. The Hindu god Shiva collected Ganga's waters from heaven in his matted hair that the ashes of human dead might be purified for their return to heaven. That is the belief. In the Ganga, how do we use the river? We bathe, we water our cattle, we wash our clothes and utensils, we defecate, we cremate our dead bodies, and conduct other waste activities in 27 cities and over 10 lakhs of people every day. It is sacred in what we might call in a pre-hygienic way. Now there are several attempts to sort of improve its purity. There have been several Ganga action plans, but we all know the plans have not been able to achieve any substantial amount of success. There have been several litigation. There was several direction by court without much success. Last time I went to, on the Shivaratri day, I happened to be in Benares, and looking at the Ganga in Benares, I felt like weeping. Really, tears came to my eyes. What was the Ganga of Benares when I was a child, and what is the Ganga of Benares? You people know. Anyway, now this legislation is a very welcome step. Now on this legislation, there are several questions. Any comprehensive legislation for management and development of Ganga is a very serious undertaking. It cannot be done overnight. If you have to make the law, give the law a teeth, make the law effective, it must be a very serious exercise. Because once you make the law, you cannot go on changing it every day. So what is most important? That a very well thought out plan. I'll come to the initial problems which are being considered about the legislative competence of this law. Since it is an interstate river, not only interstate, it runs into other foreign countries like Bangladesh and Nepal. Since it's an interstate river, the legislative competence squarely vests in the central government under entry 56, list 1 of the 7th schedule. Because here the entry 56, list 1 of 7th schedule is very wide. It states regulation and development of interstate rivers and river valleys to the extent to which such regulation and development under the control of Union is declared by permanent by a law to be expedient in public interest. So this law, when it is enacted, it has to be stated, as has been said by Mr. Singh in the preamble, that this is made in public interest. Obviously it is. Obviously it is, but this may be stated in the preamble. And obviously it is in public interest. It is the national river. A little more facts in the preamble, and it is in public interest. And once it is, that declaration is there, and in the preamble I find there is something more which has been stated, and rightly so, that this act is been enacted to implement the fundamental rights under Article 21 and also to give effect to the provisions of Article 39B, 48A, 49, 51A, F and G. Those are directive principles. So this act has a constitutional sanction. And once it is made under 56, which it is, then 17 of the state list that is relating to water, you see the language used in the state list is very carefully chosen. Water, it does not talk of river. That is to say, water supplies, irrigation and canals and drainage and embankments, water storage and water power subject to the provision of 56. 17 is subject to the provision of 56. So once 56 law is there, legislation of 56 is there, this power becomes subject to it. This power under 17, then power of agriculture under 14, the power of fisheries under 18 of the state list, all these become subject to 56. This is the overwhelming, the overpowering authority given to the central government. So far as legislative competence is concerned, there is no bar. You see, in about such interstate river, the constitutional scheme is Parliament is always authorized. Say for instance, Article 262. The water dispute has to be resolved by parliamentary legislation. So other provisions where it is an interstate river, actually the state law made in West Bengal cannot be good for the state in Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. So therefore, but this Ganga flows in different states. Therefore, it has to be a central law. Now the next question is, once the law is made, do you make the law really comprehensive to make it effective? First of all, the law must have the relevant provisions relating to its effectiveness, relating to the orders which it will pass. I find that in the law, there are two tiers of authority. One is the commission and the other is an appellate body. Now, so far as the commission is concerned, if you look at the law, Section 12 of the Act says, I've just examined it cursorily, Section 12 of the Act says that composition of the commission. It talks of a chairperson. One is a chairperson, the other is a retired Supreme Court judge. The third is the other independent members of the civil society, academician. And the chairperson shall be chief executive of the commission. But what are the qualifications of a chairperson? It's not stated, subject to correction. It is not stated. One other member may be a retired judge of Supreme Court, but what will be the chairperson? What will be his credential? Whom shall you call a chairperson? Say for instance, we look at the appellate body, I think it's section 40. Section 40 possibly. The qualification for appointment of chairperson and members. Here the chairperson shall be a person who is or has been a judge of the Supreme Court or the Chief Justice of the High Court. There may be some controversy. If the appeal from the Commission's order lies to the appellate body, that is the provision, then the appellate body cannot be a Chief Justice of the High Court, because the order passed by the Commission is by one of the members is a Supreme Court judge, and I don't know who is going to be the chairperson. If it consists of Supreme Court judge, the appellate body cannot be a Chief Justice of the High Court. So these are small areas which have to be looked into. Then, as Mr. Singh has suggested, that one of the greatest polluters are these municipalities. The municipalities, corporations, civic bodies must be brought within the purview of this Act. There should be control over them. And there must be a nodal authority in every state